Hello, my name is John Reynolds and welcome to Extraordinary Life Stories. On this episode, I'm talking with Jordan Wylie, MBE. Jordan is an award-winning extreme adventurer, international best-selling author, and one of the stars of Channel 4's show Hunted and Celebrity Hunted. A number of the extreme challenges have seen him smash multiple world records, raising over £1 million in the process for charitable good causes, and he's been awarded an MBE. He currently holds the position of the United Kingdom's National Ambassador for the Army Cadet Force. From humble beginnings on a council estate in Blackpool and a tough youth lacking direction, Jordan now dedicates his life to using the power of purpose and the spirit of adventure to have a positive impact on the world and the lives of others. I'm very much looking forward to talking with Jordan. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I've been looking forward to this. So tell me, who is Jordan Wylie?
Who is Jordan Wylie? Wow, straight in there. That's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who is Jordan Wylie? Wow. I think who I am today is probably a very different person than who I was when I started my journey. But I think ultimately I'm a product of my experiences, my values, my failures, the things I've got wrong, which is plenty, and my achievements and successes, hopefully too. I think I've been the architect of what you see today for the good, the bad and the ugly in many respects.
Well, take me back to a young Jordan, because there's a lot to unravel there. But when you were growing up and got your aspirations and motivations, what early influences came your way that kind of shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I grew up in Blackpool. I'm very proud to be a Lancastrian, a Blackpool lad. Big supporter of the football club too, and opportunities were few and far between. In Blackpool, I grew up on one of the largest council estates in the country. I come from a very hard-working family. Again, both from council estates themselves, who worked hard all their life, had challenging, tough upbringings, but really had strong values, really kind, honest, hard-working people. And whatever I certainly lacked materially, I definitely received in love and support in many ways. I think football was always my sport. Always loved sport. Always loved the outdoors. I was not a bad footballer in my younger years. Played at a good standard at an academy centre of excellence as it was then. Preston North End, Blackpool. Trials at lots of clubs. So I always thought, like a lot of young lads, I'm going to be a footballer.
Absolutely.
And I love being in the outdoors. When I think back to my childhood, the things that I never see people and kids do today was what I loved, like, camping, fishing, climbing a tree, building a den, things that just don't seem to exist anymore, it seems. So that was what I got up to in my younger years. But then as I got into my teenage years, I guess I started to discover and engage with some of the challenges that would arise with teenagers going through puberty, and in a place like Blackpool, and I'm a big champion of Blackpool, but things like crime and drugs, they're very easy to access very, very, very quickly. They're almost everywhere you go, and I was certainly mixed in with the wrong crowd on many occasions. I think it's important to take full responsibility for any choices you make in your life and own your mistakes, but I was very easily led, and maybe even I was a ringleader sometimes as well. I was certainly no angel, and
It was your surroundings, though.
yeah, you're a product of your environment, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then that's the same today. I know that more today, more than ever before. And as you get older, your circle does get smaller, and you are more selective, aren't you, about who you let inside there?
Yeah. But you removed yourself from that. There's people that are still in that or have stayed in far too long. At some point, clearly you...
Yeah, and lots of people, when I go back to Blackpool, they're still in, not everyone, of course, but there are lots of people who I considered good friends growing up who are still in those, what I would call quite negative cycles. I was fortunate in the sense that I got a bit of an escape from that environment through the military, but from 13, 14, 15, 16, the police knew who I was, on a regular basis. I'd be very honest, I had multiple cautions for antisocial behaviour. So I had a criminal record, in effect, for getting up to no good. Again, nothing super serious, but enough to be upsetting a lot of people locally and being a nuisance and a bit of a menace, I guess, to society.
Sounds like you were lost.
Absolutely. And the same for me with, education. I did terrible at school, and I'm not proud of that at all. And I'm actually ashamed, because what I've learned in my life as a soldier, as an adventurer who's been fortunate and privileged enough to travel to all 7 continents many times over, is that education is actually a great privilege, a great opportunity. And I really feel that when I look back, I have a lot of regrets. I'm not one of these people who says, "Oh, I wish I'd done." I have so many regrets. But I learn from them.
Sure.
And I left school with no GCSEs, no formal qualifications, and then as an adult, and having travelled the world, I've gone back. I've done all my GCSEs, my A levels, foundation degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, and I'm a real champion. I go into schools as a volunteer on a weekly basis, and I try and hammer that message of the importance of education.
Yeah.
But I think what is important, what I've learned as well, is that not all classrooms in the world have 4 walls. And the best lessons that I've probably learned in my life, even in terms of an educational academic perspective, have probably been in industry or in environments, on adventures. Lived experiences.
But is there an element there, and I can parallel this because I really struggled with school. I struggled to be motivated, and I've never used a Bunsen burner since school days, whereas we don't get taught financial literacy, we don't get taught self-development.
Yeah.
You've taught yourself that. We're teaching it every day. So dare I say, a young Jordan, a young John that had more access to that information and learning and being inspired, which is why it's so cool you go into the schools and stuff, could have given you a direction to be more focused on education. You had to find that, reverse engineer it, and do it as an adult. Fair play. But what more needs to be done in the schools? It sounds like you're already doing it. I would be motivated and inspired by you if you came into the school as a youngster. It needs more of that by the sound of it.
What I love to see in schools, and we're seeing it a bit more now, is values-based learning. Teaching them about respect, about courage, about discipline, about leadership, communication, teamwork. As you say, those skills that will complement all aspects of your life as you evolve and grow. Not a Bunsen burner or algebra or Pythagoras that I don't think I've ever used. Well, I couldn't even do it when it was there anyway. But
yeah, I was just going to say.
But it is, and it's the outdoors as well. It does so much good for us mentally and physically.
Yeah.
For me, when I think back to being in that, in a jail cell or a prison cell for a night in a Blackpool police station, that could have been a classroom for me. I had that same emotion and feeling towards being there. I felt trapped. I felt enclosed, confined, just wanted to get outside. And that was like being in a prison or a classroom. It's the same thing for me,
Yeah.
So, but then when you go into the outdoor world, you learn to negotiate and understand risk. You learn about the natural world, about the environment, and you also then get to engage with some of the real problems in the world, like the financial issues or crisis, climate change. We're not going to solve all these by being locked in a room all the time. I just don't believe.
No, I totally, and I think we're quite similar from a childhood and also an adult. You've gone to the extreme, and we'll come to that. But craving outdoors, climbing trees. I used to go on my bike and I used to cycle deliberately to get lost, to try and find my way back, right, as a sort of 13, 14, 15-year-old. And I know for a fact that that's not happening in kids, particularly young lads, that should be doing that. Unless you're focused on football, you've got a sport, the phone, the whole social media, gaming is potentially stopping it. So we've got a whole generation coming through of potentially kids that aren't getting that experience. That's another conversation.
Yeah, it's a problem.
But when did you take it to the level where there was the military, and then ultimately you've done some really cool stuff, stuff that I'm interested to know more about, whether you came up with it was suggested to you, but tell me about how the extreme adventuring came into your life, because you loved it and then you've married it with charity work and so on, but I want to know how that meshed together.
Yeah, I think, when I left the army, almost in a similar way to when I joined the army, I felt that the loss of a sense of purpose in my life. You don't really realize it, or I didn't as a soldier. When you have to put your medals on and polish your boots and iron your kit, it's actually a bit of a pain. You're like, oh, well, you got to do it every day. Yeah. But the moment that's taken away from you, you really miss it. You miss that structure, that rigidness in your daily life.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite days of the year now, and I've been a civilian for 14, 15 years, is putting my medals on Remembrance Day. And it's that sense of being part of something so special again.
Community.
Yeah, community, camaraderie, purpose. You've served your country, you've done your bit. Yeah. And when you leave the military, and I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, you're back in society, and you might have to start at the bottom again. We all have to. And, you might be in a job that you don't really feel valued or supported. And then what I found purpose again through adventure. But the reason I went into adventure or being in the outdoors was mainly to improve my mental health. I had some really big challenges with my mental well-being, and not necessarily from my military experience, but just from the things that we all go through in life, relationship breakups, not seeing my daughter enough, stress at work. And actually what's strange for me is I never got them when I was in the army. And we talk often about things like post-traumatic stress and things, which are of course really serious and prominent issues. But I'm also a big believer in things like post-traumatic growth, and that those things and experiences that are often perceived negative, on operations in places like Iraq or wherever. I saw some terrible things, but I also use them as a fuel, a motivator to value my life more, to make the most of every day, because I know it can be taken away from you so quickly. I've seen, good friends who, they're alongside me 1 minute and then they're no longer here. So I have a real value for life, and that made me want to live fully, live more. And I think to do it with a charitable purpose behind it, it gives you that purpose then. It's like you're actually doing something you enjoy that's good for you, and you're making a difference. It's like, I'm a Blackpool lad. I used to grow up on the fruit machines, and it's like hitting the jackpot.
Yeah.
I just see the 3 sevens of the outdoors,
it's not just
and you're making a difference.
You could be in a position where you I can't imagine it actually, but you could be thinking, I can't do this, and then you've got that weight as well. You've got that extra reward, fruit machines, where
and
it's
that's
like,
why
I'm
often
doing this for other people. I'm doing this to make a difference, and you'll find another level, right?
Definitely, and like I can remember, we were one adventure a couple of years ago. I was trying to be the first person to stand up paddleboard around Great Britain.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd been paddling like 5 months, and I was off the west coast of Scotland, and it was
every day.
Yeah,
paddling
every day. It was like December. You can imagine you're on a beach in Scotland looking for a paddle window that's never going to arrive in sub-zero temperatures. The wind's blowing. I'm injured. I'm tired. It's brutal. And then it's like, I'm thinking, I've not seen my daughter for months. I want to go home. I'm tired. I've not had a proper meal. And then you remember why you're here and why you started it. Because if it was just for an adventure, I would have gone home a long time ago. But because we were doing it on this particular occasion to build a school, to keep a promise to a young boy on the Horn of Africa, there was no way I was giving up. It's going back to why you started. And I say that to young people. It's not about what you do. It's about why you do it. Because that is such a bigger purpose and reason than the what you're doing, always.
Love that. And the importance of why and purpose are two things that I'm almost ashamed to say that they come to me later in life. That whole importance of it. And it's almost like a spine in you, isn't it? It's like it just gives you that direction, and there's a voice in you that's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen.
Definitely. And I think it links to values as well. I think purpose and values are intrinsically linked. We've spoken in the past about success and fulfillment and being at opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Success obviously means different things to different people, but
I wanted to ask you what your definition of success is actually.
Yeah, well, I think success, what I thought success was 10, 15 years ago is very different.
That's the conversation we had. Yeah, totally. Young John and aspiring to maybe shiny things and so on.
I used to be chasing the shiny things all the time, the faster car, the nicer watch, the bigger house, and the nice holiday or whatever it was. But actually, what you realise, and you will know well, it doesn't make you any happier. In fact, when you collect more things, they come with more stress often.
Yeah.
And I try to live quite minimalist now. I wouldn't say I'm happy all the time. I think on my journey, especially in the last couple of years, I've realised that you can't be happy all the time as humans. I think it's like moments, I would call it. It's like moments. And when those moments come, for me, happiness, you have to recognise that you're in one of those moments, and you have to try and hang on to that moment as long as possible.
Yeah, so important. That I think people are aspiring to be happy all the time, and the fact that you are acknowledging that you can't be, and I get that as well. I think I've tried to do that, and it's so disappointing, and lack of fulfillment, which is a key part of what we were talking about.
Because that's internal.
Yes,
fulfillment is coming from it's how you make
enjoying
you feel.
the journey.
Yeah,
like being present, rather than, I think this is a key thing, because actually, let's go back to the paddleboarding around the British Isles. You didn't complete it.
No.
So ultimately, you failed.
Yeah.
But did you?
No, not at all.
So do you know what I mean? So it's this whole and actually, would you have been happy if you'd achieved the goal? Yes. But the ultimate reason to do it was to
fund the school in Africa, isn't it?
So you found another way to do it.
And do you know what? I when I go into schools, I often show I tell the story to primary school children, high school kids, and I will say, this was my objective. We wanted to build this school, and this is how we were going to do it. And I will show them a map of me sort of doing the whole of the bottom, the whole of the left, and the whole of the top, with the whole right missing. And I will say to them, who sees this as a failure? And 90% of the kids will put their hand up. And then I'll tell them the story, got taken through the full adventure, why we built it, what was the purpose. And then they all do a complete U-turn and 100% see it as a great success. And for me, it's about that growth mindset. It's about opportunities, not obstacles. It's about stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. It's just a way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because nothing's changed. The outcome is the same, but we're approaching it very differently. And psychologists call it reframing, and it's the ability to take away a negative thought and not necessarily turn it into a positive, but at least make it neutral.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. And I think if I'd have known that and understand that as a kid, that can open your mind to a whole new world,
Awesome.
that mindset.
And someone, and not being deliberately flattering, but someone cool like you that's taken on these extreme adventures, and that one being a key example, and then actually relating that back to kids, where the mental health conversation, the two guys talking, this is like therapy to me.
Absolutely.
This is the why for me, why I want to do this and learn from someone like yourself. But actually, if you look at previous generations, men didn't talk to each other.
No.
We might have been playing football or done the gym yesterday and sort of said, "Oh, a bit stiff in the leg." But I won't tell them and say, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with whatever it might be mentally, and I'm having therapy.
Yeah,
feels like that's changing, which is great. And then rippling that into children, let alone adults. Have you sort of noticed that the same as me? It does feel like that whole ripple of change with mental health is so important, and people are actually engaging more and sharing.
Yeah. I think so, definitely. I think it's still got a long way to go. Unfortunately, I as a national ambassador for Army Cadets, I meet lots of 12 to 17-year-olds on a daily basis, and I see lots of young people with challenges. Lots of people, we've seen mental health crisis, we've seen lots of suicides, which is an all-time high, really. And for me, I feel like people like ourselves who have any sort of profile or influence or whatever level, we have a duty, a responsibility to society to try and open those discussions. And I struggle with my mental health. I take medication every day. 2 or 3 times a week, I have a cry in my pillow on my own. And that's tough. And again, it's not because of something I've seen on operations in the military. That's because of relationship breakdowns where I know that I've done things that I could have been a better human, or I could have been a better person. And the problem is when you dwell on the past, that leads to a lot of depression. And if you think too far ahead into the future and try and predict what's going to happen, it gives me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's the key is, and it's easier said than done, is to try and be present and be in the moment and enjoy that, because we know that tomorrow's never promised, and we know we can't change the past, but we can learn from it. And I have so many things that I would change if I could do them again in my life. But deep down, I also know I'm a good human. I've never purposely tried to hurt anyone or cheat or been disloyal. I know that I do my best. But with me, I was diagnosed in the last year with ADHD. And
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and it started to
join some dots.
Yeah, it has, and it's no excuse. I still take all responsibility for my mistakes. It doesn't change anything, but it's allowed me to start to understand myself more. It's like, people would say, my ex-partner would say, I'm a workaholic. She says, if you give the focus to your loved ones, that you do your work, you'd be living the dream.
I've had that said to me as well.
I'm digging you a hole here.
Yeah.
But the point being is that, when I was diagnosed, and the doctors and the psychiatrists, psychotherapists would tell me, Jordan, you're hyper-focused on anything that you put your mind to professionally. You give it 110%. And what that leads to is neglect anything that's outside that tunnel. Girlfriends, partners, family, kids, loved ones, they all fall to the wayside very quickly. And now I understand that. I'm not saying I get it right, or certainly don't get it right all the time still, but there's an awareness now.
Yeah.
And I can stop myself. Sometimes I'm thinking ahead when I'm in a conversation with someone and I'm finishing a sentence, and it's like I'm aware of it now, but it could come across really rude or disrespectful if you're not aware of it.
Yeah. Your brain's working in a certain way. But if you're not told these things, it goes back to your childhood. You're in with the wrong people. Sitting here right now, what is your purpose?
Yeah, my purpose is to try and really to inspire young people through showing them what can be achieved, regardless of where you come from in the world, what your social status is, what background you have. I want young young children, young kids to dream big and be relentless in pursuit of whatever goal it is they have. I don't think it's cliche. I think if you're really prepared to put the hard yards in, you can achieve massive things in this world wherever you come from. And you know, I'm so blessed to meet amazing people like yourselves. I think I always say to kids, actually, I call it my ABC rule. I think attitude is everything. Attitude will take you much further than qualifications and experience. If you have the right attitude in life, people will always give you a chance and they'll take a punt on you. B is for building relationships everywhere you go. Again, opportunities often come from great relationships.
Yeah. And you can't do that if you're not out there putting yourself out there taking action.
Yeah, you don't get lucky. You don't just get lucky.
Yeah.
You got to put yourself out there and turn up.
Totally.
And C is continued professional development. You know, keeping that open mind that you can always learn something from someone. You know, be a listener.
I've never heard that before.
I love that. I made it up. I probably pulled it from different things, but
I've said it already. But you must be so inspirational with the cadets, with the schools. Tell me about some of the extreme challenges, because anyone that's watching or listening that may not know some of the cool things you've done.
I engage with corporate sponsors to try and basically tick my bucket list, if I'm honest.
But it goes back to the fact that that's also part of your drive. Like, what can I do to keep myself active and actually have a goal, have a focus?
Definitely, I need that. In fact, I need it.
Yeah,
not only to survive but to thrive.
Yeah, and have a goal to aim for, right? Which gets you, because that's the other thing. Sorry, but post-military, you had to be fit in the military. And I spoke to Chris Robshaw, for example, who captain of England, training every day with the squad, and then when he retires, he doesn't need to go to the gym. You didn't need to go to the gym anymore. And yet, actually, you know how important that is to you. But do you know what? I don't feel like it today. Don't need to.
That's where discipline is important, isn't it? Because discipline is it's about turning up and showing up even when you can't be bothered and you don't want to.
So right, but with that mindset that I'm always going to ultimately have a challenge in mind, you've got to keep yourself fit and keep yourself mentally fit. So tell me some of the things you've done.
Yeah, well, I'm not the fittest or the fastest or the best at anything I do. I just love wacky, wonderful adventures. Yeah. But from climbing Kilimanjaro barefoot to rowing across pirate-infested waters, paddleboarding around Britain. 7 marathons on 7 continents, 10 of the coldest marathons in the world.
Extreme places,
just extreme places. Yeah. Diving with alligators, sharks, whatever. All these weird and wacky things.
There was one you told me about where it was what lies beneath.
So what lies beneath? Yeah.
Yeah. So you did something underneath the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me.
Amazing. It's such an important project. So this was it's still a Guinness World Record that's still held, actually. The world's deepest underground marathon. And with the Army Cadet Force, we wanted to raise the profile of the Army Cadets, because for me it's the best kept secret in this country, this amazing youth organisation. And double world record, we wanted to break the record for the biggest ever mental health training session. So we had like thousands of cadets involved. But while they were doing that, what they didn't know, what was happening beneath the surface, we're under the North Sea, up in the northeast of England. We were running in an operational mine, a polyhalite mine that went out under the ocean. So it was over 1,000 meters below the ground.
So cool.
And it was literally full sort of mining gear, helmet and torches. And then it was up and down a mine that went for 26.
How did you train for that?
Well, do you know what? I did the worst training because I did it on my day off when I was stood on a paddleboard for 4 months. And the commander of the Army Cadets rings me up and said, "Jordan, don't forget tomorrow." And I was actually in Dublin in Malahide Marina at the time. I had to get on a plane for one day, fly over there, run a marathon and get back on the board the next day. And I couldn't stand for about 4 days.
I bet. As you say, extreme. What's next? What's on the bucket list? There must be 1 or 2 things that are pretty extreme that you want to do.
Well, on my 40th, just to go back slightly, on my 40th, because I spent my 15th birthday or thereabouts in a Blackpool police station, I thought I'm going to do my 40th in the most notorious prison on the planet. So I swam from Alcatraz on my 40th across the San Francisco Bay, dressed as a prisoner.
That's full of sharks and everything.
Well, apparently so. I didn't see any, only a few dolphins.
Just didn't let you stop you.
Yeah, and then the next one is called Tower Power 2024, which will start in about 4 weeks, where I'm going to try and do a sustainable triathlon. So I've called it Tower Power, the ultimate eco triathlon. I'm going to try and get from the Leaning Tower of Pisa to the Eiffel Tower to Blackpool Tower in the most sustainable way possible. So my bike has just been made out of coppice wood from the local forest.
Awesome.
My kayak is being made at present by a naval architect in Portsmouth who, as all the kids in the local area have collected plastic 500ml Coke bottles, and he's building me a boat out of them. And then I'm going to run to Blackpool when I get across the channel.
Right, that's awesome. And how can someone help support that? How do we find out about this challenge?
Yeah, on the website, towerpower2024.com, at Mr. Jordan Wylie on social channels. And any support is greatly appreciated. It's for the Army Cadet charity, and we're also at the end of it, building a memorial for a little boy called Jordan Banks, who tragically lost his life on a football pitch in Blackpool. He was struck by lightning, out of all things, 9 years old. Yeah, so we're going to reveal a memorial at the football club when we arrive there as well, which will be lovely for the family.
I mean, that's awesome. Well, best of luck with that. I'll be following that one for sure. Last thing I wanted to ask you, if you could give any advice, and we've kind of touched on it, but just one piece of advice to a young Jordan or young lads who are going to the schools, and it's just like, what's the one piece of advice that's consistent with what you've learned that you give back?
I think for me, ultimately, it's about never giving up. You know, I think you will come across hardships, you will failure, embrace failure. You know, it's where we learn, it's where the magic happens, and sometimes it's hard to believe that at the time when you go in. You know, when you're in the trenches and you're struggling and you're having bad days, and you know, like me, I have a cry or whatever in my pillow now and again. But it's to know to never give up. You know, someone said to me years ago, if you're going to give up tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. You know, and it's just keep going, keep pushing, keep fighting, keep attacking, and keep persevering. Because often I see people give up when they're so close and they don't even know it. So whatever it is they're trying to achieve. So yeah, just keep moving forward, and it doesn't matter what pace that is, as long as you're going in the right direction.
Yeah. You're awesome, Jordan. You're big inspiration for me, let alone anyone else. And look, keep going, because it's amazing what you're doing. And thank you for making the time to speak to me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.